Hey everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm glad you're here. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 cards using the February stamp of the month called Here's the Story. Now you would look at this stamp set and think scrapbook pages, right? I'm going to show you how to make 3 cards with this set, okay? So I'm going to use these frames and a variety of different cardstock, and I'm going to create my patterned background papers. Okay, so I'm going to start with a piece of white daisy, and I'm going to be cutting this one down. So I've cut it originally at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but I'm going to trim it down. And I'm going to stamp, I've mounted each of these frame stamps on blocks, and I'm going to stamp randomly on my background on my white daisy cardstock in black. So I'm stamping off the edges. I have some scratch paper behind my white daisy card panel. I'm just going to fill up this piece of white daisy with randomly stamped frames. So it kind of looks like a collage wall. I'm just going to keep going until it's all filled up. Okay. Get the blocks cleaned up, and then I'm going to bring in another piece of white daisy, and this will be where my sentiment is going to get stamped. So I meant to stamp my frame in Wildberry, but I'm going to use that other frame for the next card. Okay, so I'm stamping my frame in Wildberry, and then I'm going to stamp my sentiment that says I love you most in black. I'll get both of those ready. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave the fussy cutting in of this first frame and just speed everything up. So the easiest way to fussy cut is to leave a tiny white border around the outside of your image, and then move your cardstock against your scissors rather than using your scissors all the way around. So now I'm going to cut the components for my card. My base is going to be black, so I'm cutting this at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that's an A2 card size. Then I'm going to bring in some Wildberry cardstock and cut that at 4 by 5 1/4, so I can layer everything up. And then the stamped panel that I made, I'm going to trim that down to 3 3/4 by 5. So I'm looking at the images and deciding what I want to cut off. Okay, now we can start building the card. All right, so I have a card base, and then I'm just going to layer everything in using Tombow. Pretty simple. And then I'll be popping my sentiment, so that's where the dimension will come from. Just layer up all these pieces of cardstock. And then we'll add our sentiment using some foam tape. So the stamp of the month is available. This one is available during the month of February, and you can get it for $5 with any $50 purchase, or you can get it for free if you're a VIP with a $50 purchase. I'll make a list of all the supplies that I'm using with links in the description below. Okay, so now these are the mini hearts, and I'm going to cherry pick the Wildberry ones out of this collection and just use the Wildberry ones. They come in all different shades of pink and red, and then I'm just going to randomly scatter them around my card front. Okay, and there's my finished card. Here's some close-up shots. Clean and simple design, but fun. Okay, let's make another one. It's going to be the same basic design, but this one's going to be very colorful. Okay, so I have some white daisy cardstock, and I'm going to cut that down to 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to bring in a whole bunch of different colors to stamp my framed background. So I'll start with Wildberry. I'm going to just randomly stamp all these frames on that background and fill it up. And stamping off the edge too. And then nectarine is the next color. And then lemonade. And then capri. Nice and bright colors. They're happy colors. And then green apple. I'll come back with some more lemonade. My bad, nectarine. Okay. And then I'm going to use that other stamped panel or stamped sentiment for this card. Okay. So now I'm going to bring in some black cardstock and I'm going to cut this at 4 by 5 1/4. And then some lemonade cardstock. I'm cutting that at my card base size that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'll bring in a card base and we can start layering things up. All right, so put the lemonade down using Tombow tape runner. And then the black. My stamped panel. And then I'll pop that sentiment with some thin foam tape. So there's lots of options with this stamp set. Of course, you can use these frames on scrapbook pages. And then I'm going to bring in those hearts again and add 3 to my sentiment. We'll have some close-up shots in a second. Super cute. I think I like this one the best. I like bright colors. They're happy. Okay, now let's make another one. So again, it's going to be the same basic design, but look very different. So I'm going to cut a piece of capri down to 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to heat emboss clear embossing powder on this panel. So when you're doing this technique, you need to work quickly so that your Versamark ink doesn't dry. So I'm going to stamp out randomly all of these frames again using Versamark ink. And I know it's difficult to see, but once you add your embossing powder, then you'll see the whole design. I'm just going to stamp all of these frames out. And then I'll bring in my clear embossing powder, okay? So I'm going to sprinkle embossing powder all over this panel. And then I'll heat it up with my heat tool. Okay. So we'll heat that up and melt that embossing powder. And then again, you'll see it disappear. I'll have close-up shots and you'll see it. It looks cool after it's all finished. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in some black cardstock. And I'm going to cut this at 4 by 5 1/4. And then my card base is going to have a white border. That's where my white is going to come from. It's my card base. I'll bring in another piece of white daisy and I'm going to stamp my frame in capri. And then I'll stamp my sentiment in black ink. Okay. And then I'll skip ahead. I'm going to fussy cut this image out. And then we can start assembling our card. Again, just laying everything down with Tombow tape runner. We'll add that capri. And my fussy cut sentiment. Okay. And then to add a little bling to my card front, I'm going to use these silver sequins. These are the loose sequins. And in this pack, you get a bunch of different sizes of iridescent ones. So I've picked those out and added them to my card front. Super cute. So I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and then you can find all of my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks for watching.